Thank you very much for this invitation. It is a privilege to be here today. The theme of my presentation is the economic growth needed for an ecological civilization. Economic growth must always be established within a well-identified and commonly agreed societal horizon. If this is not done, economic growth may in many cases cause more harm than good. The true test of an appropriate pattern of growth is defined in reference to a supra and mutually agreed path for local communities, developed and developing countries, and the planet as a whole. More often than not, higher rates of economic growth hide the negative external effect it generates, both social and environmental. Today, the planet's existing business model, in inverted commas, is neither viable nor desirable. A new economics must surge so that all expressions of life benefit from it. Welfare is not only about human beings, but also is about sentient beings and nature. Welfare is not just a collection of material things. It goes far beyond that. Given the complex situation we face today, it is important to be highly aware that there are many possible patterns of economic growth from which to choose. Today, to choose becomes a true art of governance and shared rights and responsibilities by country and world leaders. In my view, the time has come for us to choose that pattern of growth which leads into the establishment of an ecological civilization. In this respect, the sources of economic growth may be many, and the constraint to economic growth may be equally so. Thus, the goodness of fit with regard to any patterns of economic growth is not only anchored, as traditionally so, in the provision of more material goods and services per se. There are many dimensions that voice a choice that rests more and more on humanity's willingness and capacity to build this ecological civilization. Clearly, this is not just the responsibility of governments. The corporate sector will play a fundamental role in conjunction with community leaders and entrepreneurs and with the powerful engagement of civil society. To advocate the need for an ecological civilization is justified on several grounds. In particular, let us consider at least 5 grand variables that dominate the global scene. First, the fact that for the first time in our human history, we live in a planetary society. Today, we are living human values of total interdependence. Second, a world where constraints are not just technological but ecological in nature. Many natural ecosystems are collapsing. Climate change, global warming, loss of biodiversity, loss of our flora and fauna, pollution of the ocean are some examples of how this collapse is manifesting. Third, our societies are moving from market-based institutions to right-based institutions, including any form of human rights, the right to development, and the right to nature. This will create a new form of growth to materialize. Fourth, we experience a collapse of governance and management of our global public goods. The institutions we have at the international level are not doing the job any longer, including the United Nations and other organizations. Fifth, there will be 3 systems of laws that will govern us, not just human laws, but also natural law and spiritual law to enhance the welfare of all forms of life on the planet. These grand variables will enable us to find a right form of planetary livelihood and to take care of the betterment of all manifestations of life. When I studied the various theories of economic growth in the 60s, we were not living in a planetary society. We were not confronting the perils of global warming and climate change. We were not facing a tremendous depletion of our biodiversity, our DNA of the civilization. We were not seeing the immense pollution of the ocean and rivers. We were not destroying our natural forests. We were not witnessing the disappearance of our glaciers and the source of fresh water. And we were not being part of the destruction of important ecological niches and the disappearance of many environmental services. Clearly, the strategy of business as usual will not work any longer. Attention to economic growth and the possible variants available for an ecological civilization forces us to focus also on sustainable development. Today, there is a significant conceptual distance between the two, which I have to address briefly, and this will be done here in a very basic fashion. Economic growth, material growth, has to do mainly with how much and how fast an economy expands. In simple words, how large the pie gets. One step up from growth, socioeconomic development, has to do with who eats the pie, a question of equity and distribution. Furthermore, as a next step, sustainable development is not just how fast the pie grows and who eats the pie, but how long will the pie last, a crucial question today. But the story does not end with sustainable development. There is an even higher stage called conscious development. In this higher stage, it is not only important how much and how fast, who eats it, or how long the pie will last, but what are the ingredients of that pie. As a minimum, decision-making must link economic growth with sustainable development. In the mid-80s, I suggested a definition of sustainable development that will enable us to understand better these challenges. The objective of sustainable development is to attain a balance among all forms of capital participating in the development process. Within this framework, the paradigm recognized the following forms of capital: physical, financial, human, natural, institutional, cultural, and spiritual capital. This way of defining sustainable development has a tremendous significance to understand its linkages with economic growth as one of its foundations. For example, this definition states that all forms of capital have an interaction among each other, and this interaction must be taken into account. They are not zero. Specifically, the growth of physical or financial capital has a significant impact on the quality, level, and composition of natural capital. Just think about a highway that is to go through a major natural forest. Similarly, with each and every form of capital. This definition of sustainability came from a study of 600 completed projects that were financed by the World Bank in developing countries. The analytical framework proposed was also used to make an ex post evaluation of foreign development assistance in Nepal and Bolivia for a span of time of nearly 3 decades. Another feature of this framework of growth and sustainability is that it could be applied to every sector of the economy. Evidently, each sector have a different pattern and composition of growth in relation to attaining sustainable development. In the education sector, human and cultural capital are the most relevant, and so on. The world of economics and business continues to struggle with the relative importance between growth and sustainable development. I wonder what the world will look like if we decide to start our strategy planning at all levels of decision making with a given and agreed pattern of sustainable development, and only then to establish the conditions and a path of economic growth to attain such a pattern. This may be achieved if we adopt the economic model of the circular economy. It will force policymakers to focus on growth patterns in many areas of the economic system, including recycling, recovery, reuse, and conservation, to name a few. To some extent, these issues were discussed within the context of the debate on clean growth. But for the moment, it seems that the world of economics and academia continues to establish some form of hierarchy, which are biased in favor of very traditional forms and sources of growth. It is impossible to end this presentation without remarking that human welfare is not just a collection of material things. Economics will always fail if it does not question its intrinsic value supporting it. In essence, economic is a collection of values which determine human behavior under conditions of material and non-material scarcity. For decades, I have been proposing the integration of economic with spirituality and spiritual values. This demands to embrace the values of caring, sharing, cooperation, solidarity, love, compassion, protection, etc. These values in economics are particularly relevant in the management and governance of our national and global common goods and services. These are the goods and services who belong to all of us, and when mismanaged, affect all of us: health, climate, security, migration, etc. The proposed change here implies a complete change of narratives and social grammar. Why is it that it takes so long to move swiftly into a transition to an ecological civilization? Why is it that most narratives about this ecological civilization have not yet bloomed or gone viral in such a powerful way to completely transform our life on Earth? No doubt that part of the answer has to do with the nature of power of economics and politics in our societies in relationship to the ownership, access, use, and management of our common goods. Global governance is weak or non-existent, which demands a tremendous reform of the United Nations system. A new form of planetary governance for an ecological civilization requires the construction of an eco-planetary democracy. It is this form of democracy that will ensure the surge in economics, such as concepts and practices of eco-efficiency, eco-competitiveness, and eco-accounting. Economic growth within this eco-democracy must empower citizens everywhere, empower the grassroots movements and institutions, empower the youth. Without this empowerment, no transition to an ecological civilization will be possible. As we reach the threshold of development, we do not only need more ecology, but more importantly, we need more consciousness. It is the relationship between nature and human consciousness which will determine the future of the human race. To talk about love, compassion, and wisdom is not an esoteric proposition, as they are always linked to the foundation of all forms of rights and responsibility. We need an enlightened way to experience reality, including economic growth, and thus assume the full responsibility for all actions and outcomes. We don't need to destroy nature to do human good. This is fundamental to be understood. In this new paradigm, economics must embody some important principles. For example, the principle of the totality of life. All forms of life have an inherent right, not just human beings. This right is given only by the fact that they are part of the matrix of life on this planet. Second, total interdependence. All beings and all forms of life on the planet are interdependent. They are not independent. International economics is part of this interdependence. Third, take care of what is created. We have to receive the planet in a very well-defined way in terms of quantity and quality. We cannot deliver to others a planet whose life is less, whose quality is less than the one we were given. We do not own the planet. We are part of the planet with rights and responsibility over everything that exists. To conquer the planet is to conquer ourselves. The right of future generations. Future generations are intimately linked to us as part of our generation. We, the present generation, must expand and not limit the possibilities of future generations. Finally, there has never been the right to destroy. Nobody's here to destroy. We have to really pronounce ourselves over the destruction of this planet. This is not a statement on empathy. This is a call for immediate action. The relationship with Mother Earth is a relationship of mutuality, a relationship of mutual care. That is why today I dare to propose the economic of care. Today's economics is not really inner transformational. A new path demands nothing less than a consciousness shift. The issue is not to support an economics of the to have. The real issue is to support an economics that also contributes to the to be and to become. Thank you very, very much.